G'day, I'm Steve. G'day, I'm Steve from Woodworking Masterclass. You know, I receive a lot of requests of people asking me to put up some projects that are really simple DIY projects. Now, up until this stage I haven't, but I am listening because a lot of you have sent requests in, so here's the first one. This is a horse saddle stand. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have got young ones that do pony club or horses, and you need somewhere to store the saddle. Here's an easy project you can do in a matter of a couple of hours on a weekend and get the kids involved as well. And I'd like to take this time to acknowledge the help that I've received from Masters, who are gracious enough to supply all the materials for this job and all the Bosch tools that were seen in the making of this project. Right, in order to make that saddle stand, we need some stuff from the hardware shop. First of all, 6 pieces of timber, 90mm wide, that's 90, by 19 mil thick and 900mm long. If you get it at 89 by 18, that's fine. And the length doesn't matter if it's a couple of centimetres either which way. But 6 pieces of that size and 1 piece 110 wide by 19mm by 900. And you know, nowadays a lot of the hardware shops are very obliging. They'll actually cut to size. So if you've got one that's going to cut to size, ask them to cut 2 of the 90 by 19mm bits into 500mm length, and that'll give you 400 left over, which we'll use, both of these pieces. So ask them to cut 2 pieces into 500mm long, and the scrap bits, which are 400, we also use. And ask them to cut 1 more piece, 600mm long. So that's 600 from there to there, and this piece we won't use, but keep it because there might be a project down the track you can use. And that will cut your work in half because you've already cut the timber to size. There are a couple of other cuts that we have to do, and you'll need some glue. Any sort of wood glue is fine. I'm actually using one that goes off fairly quickly because I actually want to make this project while I'm filming it. And some screws. A small packet, I'm using 8 gauge by 32mm. That's fine. That's it. Let's get started. Now we have to build the crown of the saddle stand. That's the piece that the saddle sits on. Get a piece of 110 and a piece of 90. Now you have a look. Both of these are pretty good. Pick which side you want to be exposed. I'll use these 2 pieces. Now what we've got to do, make sure they're nice and straight. So you just look down there. Yep, that's fine. Check this one too. That's the point too, when you're buying your timber, look for stuff that's nice and clean and straight and doesn't have any cups or bows or twists in it. Now what I've got to do is glue this onto the edge of here. Like that. So I'll get some clamps. Put a bead of glue along the top here. Bit to spread with the finger. Or you can use a brush if you like. Place it on the edge. Bit of pressure. Put the top back in the glue. Now put some clamps on. Not not too tight to start with, or you needs a bit of finger tight. Put one on the other end. Okay, let's see how we're going here. Make sure it's fairly even all the way along. Once you get it nice and flat in that plane there, then just crimp your clamp up a little bit. Another one a little bit further in. Make sure the timber's nice and flat on both faces with a bit of a tighten. I reckon one in the middle here will just about do this. Okay. It's always handy too if you've got a little bucket next to your bench with water in it, with a rag, and we just wipe off the excess glue. If you wipe the glue off at this stage, it saves a lot of sanding and cleaning up later on. Give the clamps the other way so you can see what I'm doing. Just a nice little extra tighten. And there you have it. So what we actually did, by using 110mm wide and then putting a 90 on the other side of it, and that timber is 90mm thick, that's actually given us the same distance. So we've got 110 running that way and 90 plus the thickness of the timber on the top. Both sides are now 110. Put that to one side to dry, which shouldn't take too long. All right, that's taken care of the crown of the saddle stand. Now we've got to do the uprights. For that, select 2 pieces of the 90 by 19. What we have to do is cut a point on the top at 45 degrees. So if you just get a carpenter's square or combination squares, fine, one of these. Now place your square on the corner. Now what I'm going to do, I want to cut a peak and it's got to be central, but I'm not going to cut it central straight away, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So just come down the distance. Draw your first line in there. Now this one I'll cut using a jigsaw, and the other one I'll cut using a handsaw. Grab a jigsaw. If you've got a vise, put it in a vise. If you haven't got a vise, just use a steady hand. That's all that's needed there. Next, find the centre of the board, but an easy way to find the centre, that's on 0, that's on 4, half of 4 is 2, so there's the middle of the board. Now if you do it down here, I mean you can go to show you how it works. I'll set that at 0 there, that at 5, half of 5, 2.5, we do a mark there. To be totally accurate, we'll do 3 marks. That's 2. Now those 3 marks, they'll all line up, and that will give me the centre of the board. So there's the centre mark. Set your square up on the centre mark, draw a line down, and if we go over there to make sure they're square, the shoulders should line up too. Pretty darn close. We'll cut this bit with the jigsaw. There we are, line to line. That's what we need on the top of both posts. Now I told you I'd do that one with a jigsaw. I'll show you how to do it with a handsaw, an easy way and an accurate way. A lot of people are reticent about using handsaws because they can't get it started and they can't saw straight. Here is an absolute foolproof method of cutting a straight line, whether you're cutting on an angle or straight across a board. Put that to one side, grab a handsaw, bit of candle wax is always good, just rub it along your saw, allows it to cut a bit easier. Okay, each other piece of 90. Blow that away. Square. And again, the reason I'm not drawing these to an absolute peak is it's too hard to start on a tip. Whereas if I start here, and then when I'm doing the corresponding cut from this shoulder here, I can come up and I still have the peak, but I'm not trying to start the cut on a point. If you try and start a cut on a point, it's very hard to maintain the accuracy. Whereas if you start a cut on a flat piece of timber, it's a lot easier to start the cut. All right, now I'll use a knife. You can use a utility knife, any sort of small blade knife, and mark it with a knife, a nice generous cut down the pencil mark. Grab a chisel. Now on the waste side of the cut, which is the side that you're going to throw away, not the side you want to keep, so this side, run a chisel up, sloping onto that so you get a nice even, whoops, came a bit off there. I'm actually going against the grain on this, but if I do it the other way you can't see it so well. Now I'll just run the knife down there again. Grab the saw, holding it steady. So I have got vices and I have got mechanisms to lock this in place, but I'm assuming some of you don't, so I'll show you how to do it without using mechanical aids. Lock this pass against your hip, so you've got a twisting action there, and then just run your saw up along that reference line till it starts to bite. Keep the saw in a vertical plane, and we just cut through. It's another reason I like these rubber mats I use. As you can see, I've cut through, but I haven't damaged my saw and I haven't damaged my bench. So there's a nice cut with the saw. Now we do exactly the same on the other side. Just score down that line we've drawn. Chisel. Now just take out on the waste side a nice shaving. Pick saw up. Exactly the same. Start lightly, don't force the saw, let the weight of the saw do the job. And then when it starts to bite and you're confident it's straight, you can speed up. Then slow up when you get nearly to the bottom. And there we have it. So one done with a jigsaw and one done with a handsaw. Well, there we go, we're on the home stretch. Now we've got the crown already done. These are the two uprights. All we've got to do is put the feet on the stretcher, which you can hang bridles and bits and pieces on, and put it all together. Now because I cut these not to the point, these could possibly be slightly different in length. So make sure that these are lined up here, nice and even. If you come down here, yeah, I'm about 1 mil longer on this one. So what I want to do is actually cut these at 850. So make sure they're flush there, and then use some sort of a clamp to hold it together. In fact, 2 of those would be good. You can use G clamps, you can use F clamps, you can put it in a bench vise, it doesn't really matter. But make sure they're flush up there. That's the most important part. And then parallel on the way down. So we'll measure from the tip down about 850. Now I'm measuring this one to 850, but if it's for a child, you might want to bring it down to 750 or even 600. If you want it taller, use a longer bit of wood. Now, exactly the same thing. If you've got a jigsaw, have both these clamped together and cut that with a jigsaw. If you don't have a jigsaw and you've only got a handsaw, use exactly the same technique as I showed you when cutting the points. Mark down there with a knife, chisel it out, use your handsaw to cut it through. If you've got a docking saw or a table saw, you obviously know what to do from there. So we'll have these docked to length.